Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's August 30th, 2021, Hillsborough, North Carolina. This is Janmashtami. And so, Jai! Shri Krishna Janmashtami ki Jai! So, there is a spiritual world with all the Vaikuntha planets, Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna is there eternally with all of his associates, enjoying variety of transcendental pastimes. But some foolish living entities like ourselves turn our backs to Krishna, and we are in this material world. Krishna, glancing over the material energy, agitates time, earth, water, fire, air, ether. And then he breathes out innumerable universes. Great form of Mahavishnu with countless universes coming out of his body. And then he again expands and enters into each of those universes where he lies on the bed of Seshanag, and from his lotus navel comes out a lotus flower on which Brahma appears. And at first Brahma cannot see his source, and he's wondering, what is the purpose of creation? Who am I? And by performing austerities, he manifests everything in this universe. And this whole universal creation is only about a quarter of the energies of the Lord. Once upon a time, in one of the smallest of these universes, on a tiny little planet, the lowest of the middle planets in this tiny little universe, the leaders of the countries, the political leaders, the kings, the prime ministers, the presidents, were actually demons. Now, although this happened 5,000 years ago, this is not some isolated event. We certainly have in recent history times when political leaders are actually demons, isn't it? We have heads of state who kill their own people, torture people, start wars just for conquest and power. So in the same way, 5,000 years ago, there were such people, the military leaders, the heads of state, the kings. They're supposed to protect the citizens. They're supposed to be like big parents, good parents, not abusive parents. But sometimes these heads of state use their position and their power simply to harm others. This brings great sorrow to the earth, who's a person. She's Bhumi Devi. She's actually the wife of the Lord. Imagine if in your house got taken over by a gang of criminals. You know, some gang of criminals comes and takes over your house. What would you do? Yeah? We have a part of our Constitution that doesn't allow soldiers to live in our homes. You all know that? I think it's the Fourth Amendment. So imagine if, demon soldiers came to your, we're going to set up here. We're going to eat your food. It's a very common thing in a war, right? That the conquering army comes and takes over people's homes and eats all their food and throws them out. So this is the home of God. This planet is his wife. This is his home. And it was taken over by these leaders who are they're supposed to rule as representatives of God. And instead, they use their position to hurt others. So in one sense, every conditioned soul, more or less, is guilty of this kind of mentality. We have a little kingdom. Maybe our kingdom is one small room. Maybe our kingdom is an apartment. Maybe our kingdom is a house. Maybe our kingdom includes a business. But we have some little kingdom. Maybe it's somebody's car. And we may have some people or animals who are dependent on our care. And we also have to take care of so-called our things, our body. At minimum, we have the kingdom of our body, isn't it? People say, my body, I can do with as I like. But did we create this body? Anybody here, did you create your body? Right, there's this whole discussion. To whom does the body belong? The father who gives the seed, the mother who develops it in her womb, the employer, the government to whom we pay taxes, the fire, when the dead body is put in the fire, to whom does it belong? But it certainly does not belong to me. If it belongs to me, I do a lot better job at being able to have my body do exactly what I want. Do any of you bodies do exactly what you want all the time? So at least we have, this is the Lord, this body belongs to the Lord, and we are supposed to rule it as a steward. We are not supposed to use it for selfish purposes, separate from that of the owner. Yes? So this is, were you talking about that the other day with Sanatana Goswami, or somebody was talking? You were, yeah, with Sanatana Goswami. Yes, he was going to commit suicide. And the Lord said to them, you can't destroy somebody else's property. Haven't you learned anything? So when this happens, there's a disturbance. Like it says in the Bhagavad Gita, that austerities that trouble the body actually give pain to the supersoul. Just like any parent, if their child becomes like a heroin addict, right, or a sex worker or something like that, the parents feel distress, isn't it? Yes? Right? Or like here at the temple, if somebody misuses temple property, you know, they can't find the keys, so they take an axe and break the door. So that disturbs the managers of the temple. You know, a door costs at least $100. You know, that the property's been disturbed. So it's the same with whatever we're managing, our bodies, our room, our car, our children, our spouse. What to speak of if you're in charge of a country or a city or a county or a state. So how much pain that gives to the Lord. Because the more facility we have, it means in previous lives we were responsible. And so Krishna said, okay, here's more. And then someone, oh, more, great. I'll just get rid of it. The other day, Tamal Krishna Prabhu, who's staying here, he made the point that when one gets a human body, the soul can think, oh, great. Now I can eat, sleep, mate, and defend with all opulence. And forgets that the human body is meant for something else. So this gives pain to the Lord. And Bhumi, who's managing the Lord's household, just like even an ordinary woman would manage the house. So she's managing the house. So she becomes distressed. So she takes the form of a cow. And in the form of a cow, she goes to see Lord Brahma. Because Lord Brahma is managing the universe. So we also may go to our immediate authority when there's some difficulty and say, there's a problem here that's beyond my capacity to handle. You know, like if the mafia takes over your house, you call the police. You can't handle it yourself. So she's going to a higher authority. She's going to Lord Brahman. She said, please help me. And Brahma reassured her
यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्.
That whenever so-called dharma becomes adharma, the Lord comes. So we can also chant this verse. This recording was made here in New Goloka.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirbhavati bharata
We're going to have a response.
abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Yada yada hi dharmasya
Dharmasya
glanirbhavati bharata
Glanirvavati Bharata
abhyutanam adharmasya
Abhyutanam
tadatmanam srijamyaham.
And so all the demigods then came to the shore of the ocean of milk, and with Lord Brahma, they prayed to the Lord, please, what is supposed to be dharma has become adharma. Please manifest yourself. And there at the shore of the ocean of milk, they chanted the Purusa Shukta.
Om Sahasrajirgha Purushaha Sahasrakshas Sahasrapat Sabhuvim Vishwato Vritva Atyadishtadashangulam.
The Supreme Lord in the form of the universe has 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, and 1,000 feet, for he contains all the living entities, having pervaded the universe completely to give it existence. Being independent, he extended himself beyond it by 10 fingers.
Purusha Yevedagam Sarvam Yadbhutai Yachabhavyam Utavratattvasya Shanaha Yadannena Tirohadi.
The universe's past, present, and future are but manifestations of the Supreme Lord, who expands himself as the Purusha. He is the Lord of immortality, but has manifest himself as the Purusha in the universe so that the jivas may enjoy material fruits.
Yetavanasya mahima atodhyayadischa purushaha padosya vishwabhutani tripadasya divi.
The past, present, and future universes are manifestations of the Lord's powers, but the Lord himself is much greater. The material creation is but 1/4 portion, and the eternal nature in the spiritual sky exists in 3/4 portion.
Tripadurtvavudait purushaha padosyeha bhavat punaha tado vishwam vyakramate sasananajane abhi.
The 3/4 portion of the Lord transcended the material portion. The Lord in the 1/4 portion manifested the universe again as he had done repeatedly before. The Lord of the 1/4 portion began the work of creation by going all around, taking the form of all animate and inanimate objects.
Tasmad virada jayata virajo adhipurushaha sajato atyarichyata paschat bhumimatho puraha.
From that Lord, the Virat or universe was born, and in that Virat Purusha, Paramatma of the universe was born. Having appeared, the Virat Purusha grew and produced the earth and the bodies of the jivas.
Brahmanosya mukhamasit bahurajanyah kritaha guru tadasya yadvaishyaha padyagam shudro ajayata.
From the face came the Brahmanas, from the 2 arms the Kshatriyas came into being, from the thighs of the Virat Purusha came the Vaishyas, and from his feet the Shudras were born.
Chandrama manaso jataha chaksho suryo ajayata mukharindraschagnischa pranabhayurajayata.
The moon was born from his mind, the sun was born from his 2 eyes, from his mouth were born Indra and Agni, and from his breath Vayu was born. So the etiquette is that before we ask the Lord for something, we glorify him. We find even Uttara, when the Brahmastra was headed right towards her, she didn't have much time, but still she glorified the Lord a little bit before she said, please save my embryo. So the demigods were praying like this to the Lord, and nothing happened. And sometimes we have this experience, we're praying and nothing happens. And we just think, are you there? Are you there? And then the Lord came within the heart of Brahma and said, don't worry. I will appear on the earth planet to stop the disturbance. Right? Bhumi goes to Brahma, Brahma goes to the Lord. He says, I can't do anything. I have to ask the Lord. The Lord says, I'll come. He says, and I want you demigods also to appear on earth to assist in my pastimes. So, of course, we're all doing that, yes? In the Krishna Conscious Society, we're assisting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his pastimes. We shouldn't think that this is some ordinary sangha. Actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are being manifest here. The Lord is incarnated as his holy name. And we are here to assist him. Whether we've come from the ranks of, Magrari the hunter, or whether we've come from higher planes, or wherever we've come from, it doesn't matter. Now that we are here to assist him. And the Lord assured Brahma, don't worry, I come to destroy the impious and to save the devotees.
Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma sanasthapanarthaya sambhavami juge juge.
Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge.
So the demigods took forms on the earth to assist with the Lord's pastimes. Now, something we should really take note of here. So the Lord gives an answer. Yes, I will come and fix the situation. Does that mean he just comes and fixes it? Does that mean like 2 minutes later it's fixed? No. Did you go there, prepare the way? So how long did that take before Vasudeva married Devaki? Figure at least 20 years, 25 years later. Yes, he has to come, he has to appear, he has to get older. We got at least 20, 25 years now between the time the Lord assures the demigods and now Vasudeva and Devaki get married. And the custom then was that generally the woman went to the husband's family. I mean, we know in Mahaprabhu's time with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his daughter and son-in-law lived with him. But generally the daughter goes to the husband's family. But people got married very young in those days, and the girl might have been a little shy to go to her husband's family alone. So one relative would go. So her cousin brother Kamsa was driving the chariot to take her to her new husband's home. And everyone was very happy. People are usually happy at weddings. So they were driving to Vasudeva's home. Kamsa's driving the chariot. I'm being the good cousin brother driving my sister and her husband to her new home. And then a voice came from the sky. Kamsa, you're such a fool. You're driving this chariot of your sister and brother-in-law, thinking they're your friends, but you don't know that her 8th child will kill you. So this often happens in this world, isn't it? We think someone's a family member or friend, and then there's something else. Now, Kamsa decided that he was going to be very proactive. So he took out his sword, and he was immediately going to kill Devaki. He thought, kill Devaki, there's not going to be any kids. So imagine this on your wedding day, huh? So Vasudeva decided that he should try to pacify Kamsa. And Vasudeva speaks some wonderful philosophy to Kamsa, how we're not this body, how everybody dies. Have you ever tried preaching philosophy to someone who's very upset? Anybody ever tried that? Does that work out very well? What about when we're very upset? I know none of us get very upset, but just let's imagine sometime we were very upset and somebody tried to preach philosophy to us. Did that go very well? Not really. How do we feel when someone tries to preach philosophy to us when we're very upset? More upset, right? So it didn't work. You know, on a physiological level, what happens, like here, we feel threatened. We feel someone's going to kill us. I mean, that's pretty threatening. You know, the automatic system turns on. The sympathetic nervous system turns on. Ah! And our higher order thinking skills are compromised. Everybody knows this, right? Yeah? When there's a threat, it's Krishna's kindness. When there's a threat, Krishna has this alarm system. Just like there's a fire, an alarm rings, and you just forget everything else except getting to safety. Correct? So that happens in the body too. That the amygdala says, danger, 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 and the immune system shuts down, digestive system shuts down, higher order thinking skills shuts down. This is one reason in modern society when people are chronically stressed, they're also chronically sick. I mean, you can't think properly. Therefore, Krishna says, Trividam Narakashedam. There are 3 gates to this hell. Kama, Krodha, Stata, Lobhas. Tasmade Tatwayam Charjet. You should give up this lust, anger, and greed, because under the spell of these things, we lose our intelligence. Have we all experienced that? Yeah? And we just lose intelligence, and we can't even borrow it from somebody else. Somebody else comes and says, here, let me lend you my intelligence. We're like, get out of my face. So this happened with Kamsa. Now, the more one is in the lower modes, the less one is open to hearing higher intelligence, and the more one is under the sway of lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, madness. Yes? Right? So if you're in the mode of ignorance, you're going to get triggered very easily to become angry, to become frightened, and under the spell of those emotions, you're going to even more lose your intelligence because you're already in ignorance. So in passion, a little bit less so. Those who are in passion have a little bit more, they're less likely to get triggered. They're like a higher threshold. And they're less likely to act improperly when they're triggered. And those who are in sattva gun have an even higher threshold. It takes a lot to trigger somebody in sattva gun, and they're even less likely to act adharmically when they've been triggered. But even someone in sattva gun can act improperly when they feel threatened enough. Therefore, Bhagavatam says that those who are under the modes of nature have no good qualities. Because if they feel threatened enough, their good qualities are finished. They'll choose self-preservation, false self-preservation over good qualities. And so Srila Prabhupada comments at this point in the Leela that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life. Because if you're actually saintly, then even if the amygdala fires off, you just look at it and go, that's the body. And you're not influenced by it. You're acting on the platform of the soul. Prabhupada goes on to say, a learned man can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances, which is certainly very important. I hear from so many devotees, so many times, over so many years, I can't be Krishna conscious unless I have such and such and such and such and such and such situation. I have to change my situation before I can become Krishna conscious. Now, we're not saying you should never change your situation. Sometimes getting a different piece of furniture or moving your furniture around helps you in your spiritual life, isn't it? Sometimes something simple like that. Move your altar to another part of the house and your Krishna consciousness improves. Yes? It can happen. Move to a different city, get a different job, change your ashram. There are things, external things that do really help our Krishna consciousness, but we shouldn't wait to be Krishna consciousness for favorable situations. So I like to give this example because I worked for a couple years on editing the book Salted Bread, and I've just been in touch again with Sarvabhavana Prabhu. So he and Sachi Sutta were imprisoned by the KGB in the former Soviet Union. They had been practicing Krishna consciousness for 2 years only. And they had been in prison for selling Srila Prabhupada's books and for refusing to disclose the names of and locations of other devotees, the location of the printing press, and the location of the warehouse. So they were tortured to try to extract this information from them, but they did not give this information, and they were put in prison for 2 years. So they were put in a Soviet prison. Can you think about this for a minute? I mean, even to be put in an American prison, but to be put in a Soviet prison. So what were their favorable circumstances? Do you think the prison was very clean? I really like when you're talking about Namuchi, who had to be killed with soap. That was really funny. So the prison is filthy, right? Your bathroom is a bucket in the corner of the cell. Everything's full of flies and cockroaches. Do you have sadhu sangha? Who's your association in the prison cell? Really bad guys. You know, rapists, arsonists, murderers. That's your sangha. Pedophiles, you know, mother killers. I mean, these are the people in your cell. Yeah. Do you get prasadam? All they ate for 2 years was bread and salt. Are there any deities? Books? Have any books? Well, they couldn't get any books in a Soviet prison. They couldn't get any books. Whatever books they had just had to be in their heart. They'd only been devotees 2 years. Do you think you're allowed japa beads in a Soviet prison? So they made beads by fermenting bread. It was a several-day process, and they would make a little 28 beads. They never stopped chanting their 16 rounds. If they were caught with the beads, which they were taken away and they were beaten. And I mean beaten, like with metal rods. Sarvabhavana's back was broken. He permanently lost eyesight in one of his eyes. But not only did they always chant their 16 rounds, they preached to the other prisoners. At the end of their incarceration, they were put in a Siberian labor camp. At that point, Sachi Sutta was quite ill from the prison treatment. I mean, they were young men. They were just in their 20s probably. So he was put in the infirmary. And he died there in the infirmary. So some years later, after Glasnote, the devotees were able to practice Krishna consciousness openly. So they were having a Harinam party. And they ran into one gentleman who said that he had been in the Siberian labor camp with Sachi Sutta. And he told them how Sachi Sutta died. He said he had been too weak practically to get out of bed, but one day he got up, he shaved his head. He said he shaved his head except for a little hair like what you guys have, and he took some toothpaste and he put it on his head like what you guys are wearing. And then there was a magazine in the infirmary. He cut it up and he made like a necklace out of it. And he took off the prison clothes and put the bed sheet on him and sat in the middle of the floor and started chanting. He said, then I went to see the doctor. When I came back, he was still sitting in the middle of the floor, just smiling, but he wasn't saying anything. And I said, hey, I'm back. And he didn't respond. And I touched him and I saw that he had passed. So a learned person can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances. Prabhupada goes on, a heinous person like Kamsa can act in any sinful way. We shouldn't be surprised at what demons do. And a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Vasudeva said, okay, look, Kamsa, I know you're scared. I'll tell you what, I'll bring you my kids. It's not Devaki who's going to kill you. It's my kid who's going to kill you. And I won't just bring you the 8th kid. I'll bring you every kid. Okay. So now Kamsa's pacified. Says, I trust you. And Vasudeva actually brought Kamsa his first child. And Kamsa said, I don't have anything to worry about from this child. It's only the 8th child. And Kamsa left, but he thought, I don't know if I can trust. Vasudeva left, but he thought, I don't know if I can trust Kamsa. And then Narada Muni comes to stir things up. And he says, my dear Kamsa, you should be aware that your eternal enemies, the demigods, are taking birth in the Yadu dynasty. And any of Vasudeva's children might be Vishnu. In fact, in your last life, you were the demon Kalanimi. And in the great battle on the shore of the ocean of milk between the demigods and the demons, you were directly killed by Vishnu. Now he's coming again to kill you. Beware. So Kamsa again loses his intelligence. He imprisons Vasudeva and Devaki, at which point Vasudeva sends his other wives to Vrindavan for safekeeping under the care of his half-brother Nanda. And there Kamsa kills one child after another. Now you may wonder, why would Vasudeva and Devaki keep having children if each of their children were being killed? Because they know we're here to fulfill the plan of the Supreme Lord, who's coming as our 8th child. Therefore, we have to have 8 children, even if they're being killed. Of course, there was a mystery to this. The 6 sons killed by Kamsa in their previous life were his sons. When he was Kalanimi, these were his children. And they decided, like their grandfather, Hiranyakashipu, that they were going to do austerities to get the favor of Lord Brahma. But they neglected to ask their grandfather for permission. So Hiranyakashipu was so offended that he said, I curse you, in your next life you'll be killed by your own father. So how interesting. Kamsa's thinking he's killing these enemies, and actually he's killing the living entities who had been his own children. Metaphorically, these children represent lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, and madness. And Devaki's, metaphorically, her fear of material association in the form of Kansa allows all of these bad qualities to be killed. So after these are destroyed, then the Supreme Lord Balaram enters the womb of Devaki. He, of course, is the original guru. And just as Krishna cannot come without guru preparing the way, so the Supreme Lord Sri Balaram, the original guru, sanctifies the womb of Devaki in preparation for the appearance of the Lord. Now, at the same time, one of Vasudeva's other wives, Rohini, was pregnant by Vasudeva, and she was staying in Vrindavan. And it appeared that both Devaki and Rohini had a miscarriage, and then this child was transferred from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. And everyone understood that this child was Vasudeva's son, Sri Balaram. The Lord also instructed Yogamaya to enter the womb of Mother Yasoda. This is a deity of Yogamaya that's in our temple in Hungary. Then the Lord entered the mind of Vasudeva. Wouldn't that be nice if our mind was just filled with the Lord? Yes? Just reading Nectar Devotion, that someone who really practices to meditate on the Lord, even if they space out for a minute, the Lord is automatically there. The Lord fully enters Vasudeva's mind. From Vasudeva's mind, he goes to the mind of Devaki, from the mind of Devaki to the womb of Devaki. And although Devaki's carrying the Supreme Lord and looks very beautiful, and Kamsa notices Devaki's never looked more beautiful, but because she was in prison, she looked like a suppressed fire or misused education. But the demigods knew, and so they would come to the prison and glorify the Lord. They have such wonderful prayers. One of my favorite in their prayers is where they say, Our material problems, our anarthas, our suffering is just like a great ocean. But the saintly persons, they get in the boat of Krishna's lotus feet and they cross over this ocean of miseries. And yet, the boat doesn't go to the other shore. It always stays on this side. How is that? How is it the boat is always here? This boat of the lotus feet of the Lord. And the mystery, the demigods say, is that all we have to do is approach the boat. We don't even have to get in the boat. We just approach the boat, and then a magic happens. This great ocean of all our troubles, all our attachments, all our anarthas does something magical. Can everybody count with me? 1, 2, 3. 1. Everybody. 1, 2, 3. Woo! It becomes a little puddle. Maybe a dirty puddle, but it's a little puddle. And we just easily cross over it as soon as we approach the lotus feet of the Lord. Then there was peace and prosperity everywhere, and within the minds of everyone, there were signs of good fortune. The rivers were full and lakes were decorated with lotus flowers. The birds began to sing with sweet voices. The wind carried the aroma of different flowers. The sensation of bodily touch was very pleasing. The Brahmanas' minds became full of joy because they could hear transcendental vibrations in the sky proclaiming the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna appeared with 4 arms, fully decorated within Kamsa's prison. And he revealed to Vasudeva and Devaki that they had been his parents before. They had performed thousands of years of austerities to get him as their child. Now even think here, Vasudeva and Devaki were married. They heard this voice in the sky that Krishna would be their 8th child. They're in prison. So how many more years have gone by now? At least 8, yes? Imagine if you heard in 8 years, Krishna's going to come to you. How you would be anticipating. Right? And then Devaki's pregnant. She knows the Supreme Lord is there. And then he comes. And she's overwhelmed with motherly affection. And she says, you can't stay here like this. With a full head of hair and ornaments. And Kamsa will know that you're his enemy and he'll kill you. Please look like an ordinary child. And then the Lord says to them, I took this form just to show you that I'm actually Vishnu. And when I make myself look like an ordinary child, you're going to have to take me across the river and exchange me with the daughter born of Yasoda. So there's Krishna appeared, and then he's going to leave. Krishna does this kind of thing. He does it to the young gopis when he calls them to the Ras Leela and then he says, go home. And some of them were sages in Dandakaranya forest. They had been waiting millions and millions of years to become Vraj gopis. And then to be called to the forest, and then he says, go home. Little Krishna comes, Devaki finally, Vasudeva finally, they have the Supreme Lord as their child. What they've done, austerities for thousands of years. That they've waited for in this life for so long. And then he says, take me away. Give me away. You know, a person doesn't, generally speaking, person doesn't want to give away their child, isn't it? Like when Kunti gave away Karna, broke her heart for her whole life. Imagine giving away a child who's God. They were obedient. After all, they're devotees. And they wanted to save their child. Their mood was, never mind how much we're going to relish having Krishna here. What's most important is Krishna's safety. What's most important is Krishna's happiness. And so they see the guards fall asleep. The door is unlocked. Devaki only gets to feed Krishna one time, and then she has to give him to her husband and watch him leave the prison. This is during the rainy season. There was a huge storm, and Devaki's left alone in the prison cell as Vasudeva takes the child out of Kamsa's prison, past all the sleeping guards. And then he has to cross the Yamuna. It's the rainy season. The Yamuna is very high, and it's a storm. There's fierce waves. And Anantasesha comes and makes an umbrella over Vasudeva, and the Yamuna parts to let him through. And he comes to Vrindavan on the other side. Somehow or other, even though Yasoda had been in labor, nobody was around. Everybody was sleeping. Again, he was able to get in without hindrance. And he finds Yasoda's daughter lying next to her. Now, Nanda Maharaj is his half-brother and his good friend, but still, to save the Supreme Lord, he switches the babies and gives her Krishna and takes the daughter. Now, how Vasudeva must have been feeling at this point, how Devaki felt when she handed the little baby to Vasudeva, and how Vasudeva felt when he put his little baby down on Yasoda's bed. And he picks up Yogamaya, carries her back across the Jamuna, back into the prison. Guards wake up, the doors close, shackles go back on, and the baby cries. Kamsa hears that the baby is cried, and he comes into the prison, and Devaki says, "It's a girl. It's my 8th son who will kill you. But this is a daughter. Don't kill her. Give me one child." And here she's begging for the life of Yasoda's daughter, having sent her own son away. She said, when she grows up, she can become your daughter-in-law. But Kamsa was so cruel, he didn't care. And just like he killed the other children, he goes to smash her against the wall. But she doesn't die. She manifests that she's Durga. She says, "You fool!" You think Kamsa likes being called a fool?